February 28, 1994, a cold Bosnian morning. 6 men climb into aircraft older than most of the pilots chasing them. They know the odds. They know the sky belongs to NATO. And still, they fly. War rarely offers choices, only consequences. By early 1994, Bosnia was burning with conflict. NATO declared a no-fly zone, believing it would limit the violence. But on the ground, reality looked very different. For the Bosnian Serb Air Force, destroying a weapons factory meant slowing down their enemy's ability to fight. And so 6 volunteers, not drafted, not ordered, volunteered for a mission that commanders quietly admitted was highly unlikely to succeed. They would fly Yugoslav J-21 Jastreb ground attack jets, not fighters, not interceptors, just small, outdated light attack aircraft first built in the 1960s, against NATO F-16s, against radar-guided missiles, against the most advanced air force on Earth. Still, they were going. Leading the mission was Ranko Vukmirovic, a calm, respected pilot whose voice carried weight in the squadron. To him, duty meant more than survival. Behind him flew his wingman, Goran Zaric, younger, eager, but not reckless. In another pair, Makarevic and Pesic, veterans who knew the weaknesses of their worn-out jets better than anyone else. And at the very back of the formation, the youngest of them, Zlatan Krnalic, eager to prove himself but fully aware that in a chase, the last plane is the first to die. They all knew exactly what they were risking. And yet, every man climbed into his cockpit, not because they expected to win, but because the mission needed to be done. Before dawn, the 6 Jastrebs rolled down the runway and lifted into the gray morning. Their plan was simple. Stay low, stay hidden, avoid NATO radar, drop their bombs, get home before the F-16s could find them. But plans rarely survive contact with reality. As they sped through the valleys, hugging the earth, the tension inside each cockpit was suffocating. The pilots knew the F-16s patrolled nearby. They knew NATO's AWACS planes scanned the skies continuously. Every second in the air was a second stolen from fate. At first, the plan works. The J-21s remain nearly invisible to radar, but as they approach the target, they must climb. 2,000 meters is the minimal altitude for the kind of drop they need. And at that moment, the AWACS sees 6 dots rise into its coverage. A voice cuts through the comms. Black Flight, you have 6 bogies, bearing 320, range 52 miles. 2 F-16s, led by Robert. Wilbur Wright and his wingman, Stephen Yogi Allen, bank sharply toward the threat. This is no longer an exercise. This is combat. Ahead of the Jastrebs, contrails slash across the sky. The distinct white lines of 2 American fighters slicing through the air at frightening speed. Vukmirovic sees them. He feels his stomach clench. In past missions, the Americans had watched, but never fired. They would warn, even escort, but never pull the trigger. Today felt different. Yet Vukmirovic presses on. They are seconds from the target. Over the radio, focus on the objective. And they do. Despite the chaos, the Serbian pilots line up perfectly. No computers, no laser guidance, just old optical sights, steady hands, and nerves of steel. One by one, they release their 550-pound bombs. The factory below erupts in smoke and fire. A voice on NATO comms simply says, "They dropped bombs." And another replies, "Weapons free." At that sentence, history changes. At the rear of the Serb formation, Krnalic watches the explosions below, just as a new explosion blinds him. He thinks he's been hit. But it was his wingman, an AIM-120 AMRAAM missile, fired from miles away, tears half a wing off the jet beside him. The aircraft disintegrates instantly. This is no longer a mission. It is survival. Someone yells into the radio, "Scatter, run!" And the sky erupts into chaos. The remaining 5 J-21s dive aggressively toward the terrain, weaving through valleys, skimming treetops, praying the mountains will cover them. But the F-16s follow, down into the valleys, into spaces where jets aren't meant to go, hunting the smaller aircraft relentlessly. One F-16 locks onto a new target and fires. Fox 3! The missile streaks forward and annihilates Pesic's jet in a single violent flash. Makarevic screams over the radio, "Pesic is down! The American is on me!" Moments later, another missile slams into his engines. Flames burst from the fuselage. The cockpit begins to melt around him. With no time, he ejects just before the jet becomes a fireball. He parachutes down, alive, but the battle continues without him. Ahead, Vukmirovic and Zaric know they are next. They race through a narrowing valley. The F-16 is closing fast. With desperation as his only ally, Vukmirovic tries the unimaginable. "Follow me." He flies straight toward a cliff. This is not insanity, this is strategy. If they pull up at the very last second, the F-16 might overshoot. Both men dive lower. Their altimeters scream warnings. The cliff grows larger. Larger. Pull up! Vukmirovic tries. His jet clips the earth. It bursts into flames instantly. Zarich screams,
No, no.
Moments later, a missile finds him. He ejects, too low, and falls into the fire of his own burning plane. 2 more men gone. Only 1 jet remains airborne, a damaged J-21 limping home. Smoke trailing, instruments failing, radio dead. Zlatan Krnalic, the youngest pilot, believes he is about to die. He sees a shadow sweep over him, the F-16. It pulls into formation beside him, matches his speed, hovers there for several seconds. Krnalic looks into the cockpit of the American fighter. The pilot raises a hand and salutes, then turns away. Krnalic cannot believe what he's seeing. A minute later, the last remaining J-21 slips quietly toward home. Of the 6 men who volunteered that morning, only 3 returned. The world would come to call it the Banja Luka incident. The first time NATO ever fired in combat. The first time American pilots scored air-to-air kills in decades. And one of the most lopsided engagements in modern history. Robert Wilbur. Wright was credited with 3 aerial victories, the most by a U.S. pilot in a single mission since the Korean War. Stephen Yogi Allen earned one. Years later, Krnalic, the man who survived, would say, I don't have bad feelings toward the American pilots. We had our task. They had theirs. War is cruel. But men, even enemies, can still carry honor. But the skies over the Balkans held more secrets, more risks, and one aircraft that would change everything. The F-117 Nighthawk, the invisible jet. Except one night in 1999, it wasn't.